What is up YouTube? Today we're taking a look at the two best classes for the ISO Hemlock. First, the best possible class that I could build, and then a native class where you won't need any attachments that you can't get from just leveling up the weapon. As we all know, the ISO Hemlock was released in Season 2 and it's actually really good. So let's begin with the muzzle, where we put on the Sakin Tread 40 muzzle. This one has the best relationship in between vertical and horizontal recoil control for the ISO Hemlock, although it hurts our aim down sight speed a little bit, but we don't have to worry about that because we'll take care of it later. For the laser, we want to put on either the FSS OLEV laser or the Schlager PECBOX 4. If you want the best possible stats, then the FSS OLEV laser is the way, but it does show a laser. But if you do care about that laser showing and you don't want it, then you put on the Schlager PECBOX 4. It'll just have less aim down sight speed. Let's go with the FSS OLEV laser because who cares if they see my laser, right? For the optic, we go with the Slimline Pro, although the iron sights are actually really good. If you want to just keep them on, then don't worry about this, because this will decrease your aim down sight speed by about 10 milliseconds, which honestly you don't feel too much, but if you add it up along with the other attachments, then it might end up being something. I love how the Slimline Pro looks, so I will be putting that on regardless. For the stock, the Raid 90 is the best stock that you could possibly have on this thing. It helps a lot with your aim down sight speed, and it barely hurts your recoil control. The sprint speed will also come in handy, so let's put on the Raid 90 stock. For the rear grip, the Sakin ZX grip is definitely the best one because it gives you all the recoil control that you actually want to have without any of the negatives like aim down sight speed reduction. If you compare this weapon without the Sakin, you'll be able to tell what a huge difference it makes. And now for the tuning, we begin with the muzzle, where we increase the weight to plus 0.28 ounces for the recoil stabilization because it never hurts to have a little bit better recoil. On the bottom side, we also increase the length to plus 0.10 inches to help with the gun kick control, which is really just a visual recoil, which is very nice to have. Then on the laser, we increase the weight to plus 0.34 ounces to help with their aim walking steadiness. This is much better than the idle steadiness because most of the time you're going to be strafing, and it helps a lot with your recoil. And then on the bottom side, we want to decrease the zeroing distance to negative 0.1974 feet, but this doesn't have to be perfect. You could just have it somewhere around this number. It'll help a lot with your aim down sight speed. Then for the optic, all we want to do is move the eye position all the way up to far because it does reduce your visual recoil. Then for the stock, we want to increase on the left hand side the weight to plus 0.77 ounces. Again, it'll help with your aim walking steadiness, which is very nice to have. And last but not least, the rear grip, you want to increase the weight to plus 0.65 ounces for the recoil steadiness. And then on the bottom side, the best thing to do is decrease the width to negative 0.28 inches. Now going to the firing range to test this out, you can tell that the amount of recoil that this thing has is barely anything. You can hardly feel it. And then on the door here, you can tell how little recoil this has. I'm not compensating for it at all. The main thing that you have to worry about is a sharp right turn that it tends to have, sometimes a little bit sharper than the others, but all you have to do is after the first 10 or so bullets, pull to the left a little bit and you can have recoil patterns that look like this. Very easy to control. Now, this is the best class that you can have for the Hemlock, but now let's go for the native Hemlock, where if you don't have any attachments that you have not unlocked from the other weapons, you won't need them. And yet you can still build a perfectly usable that will still take advantage of the pros of the Hemlock. So for this build that you don't need any extra attachments for, we begin with the Cronen OP40 muzzle. This is the runner-up to the Sakin Tread 40. It is very good to have almost a perfect balance between vertical and horizontal recoil. If you don't have the Sakin Tread 40, then the Cronen OP44 is the way to go. For the barrel, we actually want to use the Series 4 MR barrel. It'll help with the recoil control while really not hurting your aim down sight speed that much. Then we actually skip the optic because you don't really get any good optics, but if you have one that you prefer, then put that on. But just through leveling the weapon, you don't really get a good optic here. Just try to figure out which one you like. If none, you could just go with the iron sights. They're actually really good on this weapon. Then for the stock, we actually do have the ability to put on the Raid 90 stock. Helps a lot with your aim down sight speed, and it barely hurts your recoil control, so put on the Raid 90 stock. And lastly, for the rear grip, we actually want to put on the X10 grip because we put on that barrel, we need to help our aim down sight speed. And this has a great balance in between the sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed versus the recoil control reduction that it gives us. So the X10 grip is the way to go here. And now when we're tuning this weapon, we notice that the aim down sight speed is not as good as for the best class, so we want to begin with that. On the muzzle, let's decrease the weight to negative 0.44 ounces to help with our aim down sight speed. And then on the bottom side, we actually want to increase the length of the muzzle to plus 0.20 inches for the gun kick control. Then for the barrel, we want to increase the weight to help with the recoil steadiness to plus 0.27 pounds. And on the bottom side, we want to decrease the length to negative 0.15 inches to help with our aim down sight speed. If you did end up putting an optic on, then you really want to tune it by putting the eye position all the way up to far. This will help with the visual recoil, which is very nice to have. Then for the Ray 90 stock, we do the same thing that we did for the best class, where we increase the weight to plus 0.77 ounces on the left hand side to help with our aim walking steadiness, which is very important to have when you're strafing. And then for the rear grip, we want to decrease the weight to negative 0.58 ounces to help with our aim down sight speed. And on the bottom side, we want to decrease the width to negative 0.30 inches to help with our sprint to fire speed. This native hemlock is of course not going to be as good as the best class, but you do have the ability of using all of these attachments versus on the best class where you might not have those attachments. But as you can see, it's still very easy to control, the recoil is very nice, and the aim down sight speed is still really good, which is nice to have, and yet it is still very easy to control, as you can see here from this pattern compared to the other patterns. You'll still have a blast using this weapon, and anytime that you unlock any of the other attachments that are really good for it, then just replace the current ones with those, and your ISO Hemlock will be a beast. Now let me know if either one of these classes helped you out in the comments down below, and I'll see you on the next one. AuxOwl out. This native hemlock of course is not going to be as good